Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rautenstrauch-Joest-Museum. His Royal Majesty, His Royal Highness, dear traditional rulers, welcome. We are very happy to have you here. Today we have Dr. Rahab Njeri, who's going to moderate this event. Please.
So, good afternoon. Karibuni sana. I welcome you. We welcome you, and I'll also welcome you in my mother tongue, Nitwamonitogeni. Herzlich willkommen. Thank you once again for offering me this space and allowing me to be here to speak and to facilitate today's event. First, we are going to let our Deputy Mayor, Mr. Charles, to give his welcoming remarks. And then I am going to continue with the moderation. So, welcome.
His Royal Majesty Asabaton Fontem Njifua, His Royal Majesty Folefak Hemenkeng Beatrice, dear traditional rulers, dear representatives of the diasporic communities Bangwa in NRW, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen aus Politik und Verwaltung, liebe Medienschaffende, liebe Nanette Snoep und liebe Gäste. Ich möchte mich zuerst noch ganz kurz entschuldigen in Deutsch, dass es ein bisschen länger gedauert hat, bis wir hier anfangen können. Vielen Dank für Ihre Geduld. Today, I am welcoming you all to Cologne and to the Rautenstrauch-Joest-Museum. Our Mayor, Henriette too, sends her warmest regards. Unfortunately, she is tied up with another appointment. However, we are very pleased about your visit, and to me personally, this is a very important and emotional moment. I am delighted that today you are able to see this important spiritual work of art from the Royal Palace in Bangwa in southwest Cameroon for the first time. And I heard you have seen it already this morning, and I think it was for you an emotional moment too. Here in Cologne, we are very much aware of the violent and entangled history that is associated with this sculpture and with Germany's colonial past. Please be assured that we take our responsibility towards our past very seriously, and we clearly see the necessity of historical reconciliation. In the last months, the Rautenstrauch-Joest-Museum, together with the municipality, has even intensified the research of its colonial heritage in order to identify critical cultural objects and make them accessible digitally or else, and to actively contribute to the international discourse. We understand that all of this is part of an important decolonization process. This process does currently not only involve the municipal administration, but many municipal museums, many organizations, and many initiatives amongst diasporic groups and beyond. It is a new dynamic, a new pace that we see in our museums. Further, we do see the necessity of historical reconciliation, the urge to talk about pieces of art and objects that are linked to our colonial past. And this can only work if we are having this dialogue, this discussion. I am therefore very pleased that you have been in touch with the Rautenstrauch-Joest-Museum over the past year. Not only are we going to talk about this important sculpture from Bangwa, but about ways of dealing appropriately with colonial injustice and about the path of repatriation and restitution of cultural property. Your Majesty, ladies and gentlemen, obviously we cannot just undo the injustice that was inflicted on people in Cameroon during the German colonial period, which still has an impact today. But I am aware that we must come to terms with the colonial contexts of injustice and the colonial traumas from the past. We, the museum staff and the municipal administration, are determined to act now. We are here to talk about the issues of cultural heritage, and we are here because we are obliged to pass on the history associated to future generations. And of course, this means that we will also deal with the restitution of cultural property. Today, I wish you a constructive discussion, and I'm convinced this day will have an all-around positive outcome. Many thanks to all of you. Dankeschön.
So thank you very much, Mr. Charles. So as Ricardo said, my name is Rahab Njeri. I am a historian and a community activist. And I once again want to thank you for also coming here today on a Saturday and offering your time to be with us here. And for those of you who know me and who have heard me moderate, I think by now you know that I always start by acknowledging. And I acknowledge because I believe and we believe and I understand that we're not the beginners, but are actually continuing with the struggles of our foremothers and our forefathers who have set the blueprint for us. So I am because they are, and I'm only well if they are well. So in the spirit of Utu and in the spirit of Ubuntu. Please do allow me at this point also to acknowledge the presence of Professor Peju and of course Nanette Snoep, two women who have been at the forefront of the debate about restitution. I acknowledge Peju and Nanette because in many cases, women do the work, yet they are erased from the narrative or made invisible. But as Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o has written in his book, women are builders and creators of nations. Women are carriers of knowledge. They are the backbone and the glue that holds our cultures and our communities together. Women have always been at the forefront of change. So I thank you, Professor Peju, and I thank you, Nanette Snoep, for your work that you're doing and you're continuing to do. The debate about restitution will not take place without our voices, and we can see these voices today here with the presence of His Royal Majesty and Her Royal Highness. The rightful owners will have a space to talk and say what they feel and how they think about the restitution. So the restitution of the Benin bronze, and as we have been able to have here, is just one story, one narrative of many narratives that are going to follow. And one of these narratives is that of the Bangwa sculpture, which I first saw at the exhibition of Resist, the Art of Resistance. The sacred Bangwa or Lefem sculpture was violently stolen during the German colonial times. And this is a history that continues to be hidden or underneath German history books. Many colonial loots were distributed all over European museums. And this sacred Bangwa sculpture has also moved from one place in different places, in different spaces, and in different times. In 1900, from Bangwa region, to the German Lieutenant Kurt Stumpel, to the collection of the Municipal Museum of Brunswick's Braunschweig, from 1901 to 1955, to Klaus Meyer's collection, 1956 to 1966, and since 1966 in this museum, and was displayed in the temporary exhibition, Resist, the Art of Resistance. So if I may borrow the words of Benedict Savoy, restitution is no longer a mission impossible, but a mission possible. And the presence of His Royal Majesty and Her Royal Highness and the Royal Delegation from Bangwa at this event attests that it is possible. So now I'm going to welcome Nanette Snoep, the director of this museum, who has been, as I said, at the forefront of the restitution debate and has opened up this museum so that we can have this discussion with each other and not against each other, where we can change this museum together and share power together. So welcome, Nanette.
Yes, His Royal Majesty Asabaton Fontem Njifua, His Royal Majesty Volofak Emenking Beatrice, His Royal dear traditional rulers, dear representatives of the diasporic Bangwa communities in North Rhine-Westphalia, dear representatives of the council and administration of the city of Cologne, dear Mr. Charles, my boss, Deputy Major of the city of Cologne, and I'm very happy that he is here, dear representatives of the press, dear Ricardo Marquez Garcia, who has organized this all and is over there, who did the provenience, forschung, the provenance work, research of the LEFEM, and who organized this all and made this happen, but also dear Vera Marucic, one of my most precious colleagues and soldiers and in this long battle for restitution. And also dear Njeri, our moderator of today, and of course you, dear guests. Welcome to the Rautenstrauch-Joest-Museum. This morning was a very emotional moment and I'm still very moved and affected. We sang, we cried, you cried, and so I cried also, and still. I'm very pleased that we have the King as our guest today. It's a great honor for us that he has come with his wife from Cameroon to Germany, to Cologne, to face in person for the very first time the LEFEM, this sacred wooden sculpture which disappeared from the kingdom during the Bangwa German War more than 120 years ago and has been in German museums ever since. I'm very delighted that the King and his delegation, who have also come from far away, from America, from Italy, but also from Bonn, have come to show us the deep emotional bond they have with the LEFEM, with this sculpture, and to explain to us why it is missing and the deep painful void it has left since its disappearance 120 years ago. It was in our last exhibition, our last show, Resist, the Art of Resistance, that we have told for the first time the long story of resistance of the Bangwa people and their king against the German invasion. This story is directly connected with the sculpture, the LEFEM. It was him, the LEFEM, which was the very first object one could see in this show, in this exhibition. It was this sculpture who welcomed the visitors to listen to another unheard story, a painful story, a story of 500 years of anti-colonial resistance in the global south. This was actually our goal with this exhibition, opening up a new chapter, disrupting hegemonic narratives, revealing, reversing, rewriting, and reinterpreting the colonial narrative, colonial injuries and wounds. I would like to quote Aimé Césaire, how he defined colonialism. And I quote, "Colonialism is a system which drained societies of their essence, undermined their institutions, confiscated their lands, smashed their religions, and destroyed artistic creations." I think it is crucial to take this into account, seriously into account, in order to better understand the high emotional element of restitution debates. And this we have seen this morning. Colonialism and coloniality hurt, deeply hurt. It hurts. In contrast to the forgotten official history written by the conqueror, the memory of the attacks and devastation of the German Schutztruppen and the Bangwa German War are still very present in the southwestern region of Cameroon today. Chief Charles Taku speaks of the traumatization of the Bangwa population by these violent events and their consequences and emphasizes that reconciliation between Germany and the Kingdom of Fontem is still pending. After we closed the show, Resist, the Art of Resistance, in January 22, the sculpture, the Lefem, is now back in our permanent exhibition. And I'm sure that the visit of this royal important delegation and today's discussion will deeply and permanently influence how we as a museum will deal with the sculpture, with the Lefem in the future. Who will tell his story and how? How or if we will continue to show it as long as it is part of the collection of the Rautenstrauch-Joest-Museum until, and this I really hope, until the city of Cologne will probably decide his return to Cameroon. We, the museum, my team, see ourselves in this process of restitution claims beyond all necessary legal and diplomatic negotiations as a transparent and democratic platform for alternative and unheard narratives, stories. We try to create a space in this museum that has to be understood as not being decolonization itself, but generating the potential for decolonization. So what could it mean for museums to become active agents in this project of worldly repair? What could it mean to create a platform which becomes a tool for communities to publish themselves? For me, these talks and meetings are the starting point for coming to terms with the violent history and building a new relationship between Germany and Cameroon, between Cologne and Fontem, between the museum and the palace of Fontem, between you and me. That means reconciliation. Doesn't mean only recognition of the colonial crime committed by Europe, but also of the suffering and deep traumata that it has caused and which is still present today. Thank you very much.
So now, thank you very much, Nanette. Now, as protocol holds, I will let Chief Folabela Mafua, who is going to introduce His Majesty, and then they will tell us how to continue with the protocol, because this is the first time that we have a king here, so we do have to follow protocol. So welcome. Yes.
Guten Abend zusammen. Yes, so I would start from the picture. That is the great Fontem Njifua, who ruled Lebanon from about 1885 to 1951 when he passed on. And it was during his reign that the sculpture was taken away. And when he left, Fontem Njifua took over from 1951 to 1982. And the whole reign of Fontem Njifua, the successor, he dreamed of having this Lefem back, but it didn't work. And on his dying bed, as he passed on, Fontem Njifua, his father, took over from 1982 to 2014. He dreamt and talked about it, but he never saw it. And when on his dying bed, the new Fontem Asabaton, the king of Lebanon people, he took over in 2014, and today, just a few years after, I would say, because this is 120 years that we're talking about, and he took over in 2014, and today, 2022, he was able to see the Lefem and touch it. Let us give an applause. Just like the director said, it was emotional. We cried for many reasons that we cannot go there now. And the fund came with a drink on. the first lady taking care of the palace. It is something very new and very precious for us that we think and pray that His Majesty Fontem Asabaton Njifua Fontem will bring an end to this story. Thank you very much. Yes, so right now we are going to get a word from the horse's own mouth.
The mayor of Cologne, who couldn't be here due to other commitments, the assistants to the mayor of Cologne, the director of the museum, Your Royal Highnesses, chiefs, Mafuas, notables, the representatives of the folklore movements, the representatives of the BLM community here present today, our friends who are here present of the Cologne municipality. Good afternoon to everybody. Today is a very emotional day to me for many reasons. I have visited so many countries. I have studied in Canada. I have visited the United States of America so many times. I have transited through Europe so many times, but I cannot say I've ever visited Europe. So this is my very first visit and stay in Europe. And it does happen to be on an occasion such as this, wherein I led a delegation from Cameroon to visit an artifact which is very close to the hearts of the Bangwa people. I touched 3 times Ngolefe, which is very dear to us. This is something that my predecessors, two generations back, only dreamt of seeing it, and they couldn't. But like Chief Obele said, within less than 10 years of ascending the coveted throne of Fontem, I am here for the very first time in Europe, and I'm able to touch and to see Ngolefe. It means a lot to me personally. It's a lot of blessings to me personally. It's a lot of blessings to the entire people of Fontem. I wish to express my sincere thanks to the director, Snoep, for inviting me and my delegation to the municipality of Cologne. This invitation is a welcome response to our request for the restitution of our ancestral artifacts, which were looted during the German expeditionary campaign, in which my people were subjected to collective punishments and enduring misery. one of our reverted artifacts, which was looted from our Lefem, the most sacred ground within which matters concerning the life of our kingdom are discussed, is found here in the Municipal Museum of Cologne. Prior to being looted, the distinctive place of this artifact was at the entrance to Lefem. It is a fearsome commander who was endowed with natural and spiritual powers. It was a spirit medium. Through it, enemies of the kingdom, evil spirits and wizards, as well as intruders, were prevented from gaining access to and desecrating the sacred ground of Lefem and harming the king and members of Lefem, who are distinguished leaders of the land. Looting and taking this artifact into captivity, far from its natural environment, deprived us of the natural and spiritual protection which were provided by our ancestors and by God. The desecration of our Lefem and the looting of this artifact was one of the grievous collective punishments which greatly impacted our cultural and spiritual norms and dysfunctional societal dysfunction. We considered the invitation you extended to us as the beginning of the process of returning these artifacts and of ending the agony of the collective punishment which our ancestors and successive generations endured and are still enduring. Honorable Director, your letter of invitation dated July 1st, 2021, highlighted the fact that this reverted artifact was on display in a temporary exhibition called Resist, the Act of Resistance, in the Municipal Museum. We are here to welcome your invitation and the opportunity it presents for us to reiterate and emphasize our request for restitution, which we sent to the Lord Mayor of Cologne. Honorable Director, our presence here today is also an expression of our support for the new era of collaboration and friendship which you highlighted in your letter of invitation. This visit has received the endorsement of my people and our ancestors, who consider it an important step towards providing a solution to our more than a century of the collective and individual punishments we have endured. Today, we have set our eyes on this reverted symbol of culture and spiritual existence. Like I said, I touched it 3 times. Today, we can at last hope that it will be returned to its natural environments in our homeland, so that the void, the disruption, the nightmares, and the enduring sufferings, humiliation, and shame we have been subjected to will end. I am accompanied by direct descendants of His Majesty Fontem Njifua, and notables of my kingdom who have come to witness these historic moments and to support our request for restitution. They have also come to commence a new era of collaboration between us and the museum and the municipal authorities of Cologne. The restitution of our artifact will mark a significant conclusory step in the decolonization of Africa, because the independence of Africa cannot be deemed to be completed when the very heartbeats of our civilization, our spiritual and cultural fabrics are imprisoned far removed from their natural environments. The return of our artifacts, that's le femme, to its natural environments will mark a new era of collaboration in which the ghost of our violent colonial past will no longer haunt us and successive generations. We are hopeful that this visit will open the gateway for the restitution of our artifacts, which are held in about 14 other museums here in Germany, and as well as in other countries in Europe, making them one amongst the highest in European colonial possessions. This platform in Cologne, from this platform in Cologne, we wish to make an impassionate plea to all, for all our artifacts to be returned to us without any further delay. I take this opportunity to extend my profound thanks to the many persons who have turned out to witness these historic events, in particular the Bangwa diaspora and the folklore movements who have accompanied us on this long journey of love, unity, despite multiple general challenges which we have collectively endured. Honorable Director, the people of Cologne, thank you all for your hospitality.
Yes, in the delegation of His Majesty, right at the end is Ndinkamka. Yes, he's in Rome, Italy. Then Mafua Mbin, she is in Ohio, in the United States. She lives in the United States. Yeah. Mbi Fojong, also a direct, a notable who decide affairs of the kingdom. He is also based in the United States, in Virginia. Of course, we all know the king. I don't need to come back. Then that is the law, the heartbeat. You can see, yes, the heartbeat of the palace. Yes. Then Mafua Ngolefe Fontem, she's also a lawyer based in Yaoundé. She said this thing cannot be without her coming here. And then we have Fortamache, the heart of this issue, that they have put their heads together. He said he would rather die than be alive, because the ancestors will still go and say, when they took it and you had all the brains, what did you do? This is what is keeping him uneasy. Because he told me, he said, Chief, if I die, what will I go? My mother asked me that you saw it and you were a lawyer. What did you do? So he said, let me do my part. And that is why they have been working on that. And I'm Chief Acha-Morfaw. I studied 35 years ago here in Bonn. I'm a pedagogue. But I'm back in Cameroon, and we are working to see that the day this FM will come, we are going to invite all of you, and we shall feast together and forever. Thank you.
So thank you very much for that introduction. Now we know who is sitting here at the front. And we thank His Royal Majesty for his positioning about the restitution and what it means for him and for the Royal House and for the Bangwa people. I also want to thank Museumgesellschaft and also Kulturstiftung des 360 Grad for also being part of this event and also being involved in it. So we thank you very much for that. So we are going to go in direct, as we heard before, that they did see the FM, and as you all know, there's also the series I Miss You, and we would also like to know, you know, they've already said before that they saw it and it was very emotional for them, and we understand it is a very emotional thing being able to see the FM after 2 generations, and so we think it's also a blessing for our King and Her Royal Majesty to be able to see it. So I am going to sit here, and then I am going to start maybe with the first questions. And as always, we would like to have a discussion with each other. It's a communication where we want to learn more about this sculpture, which has been here for a very long time. Which narrative does it tell? And as Nanette Snoep, what does it speak, and which language is it going to speak maybe once it's back? So I welcome you to our dialogue, and after that, please do feel very free to join in, ask your questions. You have the opportunity to talk with the king and the queen and the royal chiefs, and we can find out more about this sculpture. So I'll sit as the protocol demands, and then we continue. Okay. I think the first thing that I would like to know, I think most of us who are here would also like to know, is that did you know that the figure was here? Why are you claiming it back? And please do feel free to answer according to the protocol or how it's best fit.
Thank you very much. A specific person took this particular art. When it leaves your shores and is traveling, sometimes you lose track of it. So we knew who took it. But if you think of 100 years ago, where we generally were in Africa, it wasn't easy to keep track of things. Why do we want it back? That's no longer a question to ask. This is our very existence. 100 years ago, you can imagine, we've gone from pain, mourning, to the point where some generations thought, it is just a myth. My grandfather spoke of Le Femme, my father spoke of Le Femme, but where is it? What is this Le Femme? Is this a myth? And of course we want it back, because it brings hope, and it becomes a reality. Psychologically, spiritually, our people have never been the same. We were even more so a proud, industrious, civilized people. When you rip away the heart of one's spirituality. What is left but an empty cocoon? So, of course, we want it back to be complete. A lot centered around the Lefem. From the everyday thing, like women taking their crops to the palace for blessing, communicating with our ancestors. You heard the king. Protection. The once proud, hardworking, rich land is no longer the same. All sorts of things have been falling us as a people. All sorts of things have been falling our rulers. Who do you pray to? Why do you want it back? If somebody went away and took away the relics, for you here who are Catholics, of St. Peter in Rome, how would the Catholic Church feel? If the relics of St. Peter disappeared, how would the Catholic Church feel? And you ask us why we want it back? Of course, we want it back to be whole again. That's the simplest answer I can give you. We need to be whole again. We need our young generation to believe that 100-year-old stories they've been hearing is real. You can feel safe again. You can feel proud again. You can feel whole again. So we want it back. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Yes, and I think the audience would also agree. It's necessary that it goes back, and you've spoken of the importance of the spirituality, the hope, but also for the next generation to be able to see this Lefem and to be able to identify themselves with the Lefem, but also to know the history. And so for me, as a historian, when I saw it the first time, I looked at it and I wondered the oral histories that have been told about the Lefem that have maybe been passed down from one generation to the next. But then I thought to myself, since it's here in the city of Cologne, what does this oral history mean for the people of Bangwa region? To be, to hear stories, as you have said correctly, hear stories about them, but really never have been able to see it. So what oral histories have been told about the Bangwa, and is that the original name? Or is that a white construction of calling it Bangwa? Oh, you answer.
When the white man came, it's Mbengwe, which he wrote is as Bangwa, Mbengwe. But Bangwa, Mbengwe, mean the people of Ngwe. There was a lot of translation, right? The original people spoke neither English nor French. And so when the white man came, he was moving with his interpreters. Like another one, you hear Fontem. They came and they were coming up and said, who is the controller out there? The interpreter said, for your temte, that was Aswanyi. The Fua means chief, and Tem, who shoots. So you see, Fontem, he shot and never missed. Aswanyi, probably that's why he could fight the Germans for 9 years and he was not captured. And so you get again, Mbengwe, the people of Ngwe, which was written as Bangwa. There's really no word like Bangwa, but we said Mbengwe, the people of Mbe. Is people Ngwe of Bangwaland, of Ngweland, sorry.
Yes, thank you. Anybody else would like to say something? Okay. So maybe me trying again to connect to the series I Miss You. Have people here in the diaspora missed the Bangwa figure? And have you, I mean, you already said that you missed it. I just want to go back to the first question of how did it make you feel? That feeling that, you know, seeing it here, something you haven't seen for a long time, what did that do to your body? What was your reaction? I mean, Nanette told us that you cried and she also cried, but I think there's also more to that. There's more emotions to that because you're missing something that has been out. And I think Chief Taku wants to answer.
Yes, you see, when you hear the film as a figure, you can't get it. It's an institution. I'm the chief of Bela. When you hear for Bela, for means chief, and Bela is that village where I'm on the throne. And this is the paramount. I'm answerable to him. When I have crises that are above my level, I go to him. And in those days, that colonial period, the palace had a prison because it was a king. And if he meted punishment. So when things are above me from my village, or if two villages are in crisis with a neighboring village, we go to the fund, and they try the case and give a judgment. And so when we talk of the femme, it is more than a place, because those the young people now, which we regret, when they hear the femme is a place where they sit, but it is more than a femme because the justice department is decided inside there. Each chief has LFM, which is a smaller one, because all the chiefs meet. But we can't go into details because we can talk to you tomorrow. It will not get through because the history of 200 years, we cannot come and say it in 5 minutes. So the chiefs come and meet in the firm in Mazi, where he presides, and what they decide, they go back to their chiefdoms when they come to the fund. And so this the justice came from the source and then to the villages. And so this, as it was taken away, we've all missed it. The generation, 2 generations we had, did not see it. But they had to be working, and as I can say, in sociology, the society has missed a lot because the link, the origin left. And that's why we're hoping that when it comes back, what they have been hearing, like fairy tales, it will be a reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to add to what His Royal Highness has said, the kingdom of Fontem and the king, they have total sovereignty over the firm. 120 years ago, before then, and today. Even in international law, or in whatever case you look at it, the notion of sovereignty belongs to states. But with this specific area of the cultures and the traditions of the people and their spirituality, they have sovereignty, absolute sovereignty. Strumper, the commander of the German Expeditionary Army, was not a member of the firm. He had no right to desecrate the firm, let alone looting and carrying away supreme objects of our sovereignty, our spirituality, and power. The intention was to totally humiliate us, render us worthless and unprotected, and he succeeded in doing that for about 120 years. And that's why today was a day of mixed emotions, of joy, because His Majesty touched it 3 times on behalf of all our people on the face of the earth, on behalf of all Africans who have been similarly humiliated, on the part of humanity, that at least our laws frowns at this act of extraordinary violence and devastation and humiliation. Imagine the positions we've gained in life, public life, internationally. able to control international institutions where you have Germans and other people from other races. But Stumpo did not know that one of us would grow up, study in Germany, and come to the level of the chief. They didn't know that one of us would become a well-leveled, distinguished lawyer, having taught law to generations at the university, and being on the board of so many companies and many international institutions. Or that the king and the Royal Highness, the wife, who study in some of the best institutions in the world, or our notables there who own very important institutions, business organizations in the United States of America, or we have a distinguished professor heading the Department of African Studies in the Eritrean University in Rome. They will not know, but we are there. Yet we are still incomplete. We are still humiliated. We are still held by the ghost of humiliation that will have our most revered and strongest attributes of power, spirituality, and humanity imprisoned in European colonial positions. That's unacceptable. And therefore, I support what the chief says. We're all practitioners who are there. I will know the hopelessness and the pain. Today was a mixed day of emotions, but a day of joy, because that war which the Germans started 120 years ago has not ended. And God has put it in his hands to be the one with regard to the city of Cologne and the director and others to put an end to it and to turn that page of history into a happy moment of collaboration and mutual human recognition. Thanks.
Thank you very much. You also wanted to say something?
Yes. So, you were talking about emotions and how we feel about this day. For those of you who were in the room yesterday and today, you probably felt a piece of it. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit emotional. It's been one of those I feel alive. Just seeing that beauty. I've heard about it. My dad talked to me about it multiple times. I've studied it. I jumped on an airplane, still with a lot of skepticism in my head. And you can imagine. And not that I did not believe Chief Charles Taku. I believe him fully. But when the call came and I'm thinking, is it real? And it is real. The Bangwa people can finally, at the end of the day, feel that piece of them, that link to their ancestors. And so, yes, the feeling is overwhelming. And it's going to take some time, for some of us to get, through it in so many different ways. We're going through different emotions. But we are very grateful because this door has been opened to us. It probably would never have been, but for the kind-heartedness of the museum, of the people of Cologne, and of the city of Cologne itself. And so we want to thank you all very much for giving us that opportunity to be here today. Thank you.
If I may just add one little thing. When you ask us how we feel, look at that. Look at His Majesty Fontem Njifua. For a people who could make that attire 120 years ago, what were Europeans wearing 120 years ago? Even today, look at that. Look at that artwork and the other pieces The essence of this was not just an artwork, as we've told you, but you have other pieces that were rich artwork. For a people who could do that 120 years ago, for those of you who've been to Fontem, you've seen the palace of Fontem. What happened to us? Why did we stop growing? This is our hope, that the curse, the anger of our ancestors will stop. They will lift up that cloud and will once more start growing. Today, if you imagine that we could make that 120 years ago, look at his neck work. Look at that, 120 years ago and before. So when we look at it, what does it do for us? It gives us hope that our younger generation will be free to express themselves again. We'll be free to grow faster, to assume their rightful place in this world. Thank you.
Do you want to say something?
Thank you very much. Not much to say. They have said a lot of things. I think all of us agree that we are living a particular moment of our life. All of us here, not only our delegation from Cameroon, led by His Majesty. There is time for everything. Probably this moment was prepared for us by our ancestors to start something new, to start a new relationship with the Germans. They have been to Cameroon in the beginning. They did what they did. Many Germans went after them to Cameroon. Not to do what the others did, but to start a new type of partnership, new relationship. Today, it could be one of those moments that we should take advantage and say we are all involved in starting a new brotherhood, partnership for a new cooperation, completely different from what was the past. We are lucky to be the artifacts of this moment. Thank you.
Thank you. As for me, I was young, of course, when Fontem Njifua had traveled. In our dialect, we say he traveled. So when my plane landed in Cologne, I think I started to feel it. I felt that touch of my ancestors. And I'm so happy to be here today because my mother is 100 years old and she's been asking, have you seen it? She too, she was born in, early 90s, and I don't think she saw the Le Femme, so you can imagine how we all are feeling. And I'm happy to go home and tell my mother that I have seen it. And that's where all the emotions are really coming in. When I arrived here and came to this museum and saw him, I started crying because this is history. I felt connected to my ancestors. And for that, I'm happy for the initiative that brought us here today. Thank you.
So please permit me to ask the last question, and then we open up for the audience. For me, or I think for many of us, or as we have had discussions about restitution in this same space and in this same place, one of the things that we have always been asking is also for the Benin Ponzen, but also now for this one, when it goes back home, which language will it speak? After being silenced for so many years, after being violated and forced to hear so many different languages, as I said before, it moved from the Bangwa region, it was put somewhere else. So which language is it going to speak?
Thank you. You're asking an earthly question. We are talking about spirituality. 100 years, 1,000 years, the spirits are the spirits, the gods are the gods. So wherever it's been in the world, it's been waiting to go home. Whether it was silent, speaking German, speaking French, speaking Japanese, the spirit knows where it belongs. It will probably also bring us some richness from our German friends. But it is the spirit of the Ngwe people. That never goes away. Thank you.
You see, His Majesty, when we got here, the first language when we got in there was Ngwe. And so, and don't make a mistake, even if there are colleagues here, the mistake the Europeans made is they thought they could bring religion to us. This Lefem is not a god, it's a spirit. Because like the Catholics, when you say the saints in Ngwe, because when you hear Belem, if you translate it wrong, you say gods. No, there's only one God. I'm a Catholic Christian. I want to make this clear. God is God everywhere. And Jesus is Jesus, the Son of God, everywhere. And so we don't pray when He comes back. It is not, we're not calling it that it is God. No. It represents our ancestors. And our ancestors are not God. They are nearer God than us because, like many Christians, they want to go to heaven, but they don't want to die. I don't know how it is possible. Right? So our ancestors, we ask them to intercede for us because they work so hard. If I can dilate a bit, Asonyi was in the hidings for 9 years. He fought the Germans for 9 years. And at the end, he said, when I am here, they are killing my people. If they kill all and I'm there, who am I going to rule this place with? He came out freely and went to the colonial officer and said, here I am. Take me and let my people free. They first doubted. And then they said, we want to handcuff you. He said, you're handcuffing me. Are you the one who came and looked for me? And they took him not to Boya, which was the headquarters, but to the extreme north, to Garua, fearing that the Bangwa people could be very aggressive again and come. So these are issues that we need to know. We ask them to intercede for us. Because many people think that we are saying that it is God. No. It is a spiritual value that when you start there and say, oh God, for you, Jesus, for you, it works. And nobody can take that away. Even if I'm to go to prison, I will still have that faith, and nobody will take it away. If you inflict pain on me, I say, may your will be done, Lord. May your will be done, Lord. And that's it. And so that's the freedom that we have that nobody can take away. This one was taken away, but we knew. And that's why the people have been going and falling and rising, and we are hoping that it will come back so that we grow once and for all. When His Majesty got there, he greeted in Ngwe, and they got it. As when himself is seated up there in paradise, and he's seen. Just like Chief Charles said, if I don't react, when I die, I'll go and see them. They'll say, but what did you use the sense that I gave you? And that will be the spirits, the God. Because God will judge all of us depending on what He gave you. He cannot ask you what He did not give you, I think. It's my opinion. Thank you.
His Royal Highness the Chief, when he spoke first, he said something important, and he has repeated it. I believe that the fact that I came on this, our father, Fontem Njifua, called me and sent me on this mission, and thereafter our king also sent Mafua here, and our late brother Ndinkama Temasong, to pursue this. Unmistakably, it was our ancestors who are leading the battle. it will unheard of to hear that we surrendered. For people who know us, we never surrendered when we are right. That's why when I came here, one of the first questions that was asked, first in conferences, and thereafter, he said, why have you come? I said, I've come to continue the war, because the war never ended. Indeed, it never ended, because I felt the spirit of our ancestors. If you knew anybody were to tell the history of each of them and their influence, and perhaps the influence of their offspring, those of us who are here and others in our communities, in our different professions and elsewhere, you will believe. And therefore, only somebody who doesn't know the tradition and ask us that, which language will they speak? Because people who have that level of extraordinary power and spirituality, they were able, when they were fighting against the German expeditionary force, what language were they speaking? And yet they prevailed in many ways. It ended up in these crimes. He took these crimes of collective punishment, mass killing and looting. He took it for himself to come out, to say stop. If we were just fair warfare, following the rules, nobody will ever have prevailed. So the question, what language do they speak? They've been able to speak the language of the new German, of the new generation of Germans that we'll find in the director of this museum, and also of the mayor of Cologne and his representatives, and the workers and the researchers we find today. They're able to communicate with them. That's why they now came out and challenged the colonial narrative. We were not there when they challenged. It was this spiritual fight that inspired them, their researchers, to challenge and to say, these people are right, will come to them. So whatever language they will speak to us, which they have also acquired, is going to be positive, only to help to promote the values of Fontem Njifua, our ancestors, and not to counter them.
So thank you very much. And now I open up the discussion for the public. Yes, we already have someone here. Here.
I will give my best to see every hand, but please help me if I don't see someone.
Thank you. I had a question for His Majesty, if I may. We spoke a lot today, everybody's spoken a lot about emotions. I wanted to know if there was one dominant emotion that you felt when you touched and came in contact with the artifact, and whether it was anger, whether it was joy, whether it was sadness, if that's possible to sort of identify a dominant emotion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. The emotion I felt personally was that of joy. Joy because just seeing it resonated hope. Like I spoke to the director, the hope for a better Bangwa, the hope to regain that connection, that long lost connection, came back by just seeing it and touching it. The hope that the punishment we have endured for this long is going to be erased by the return of this our precious artifacts. So it was an emotion of joy and relief that this is happening at the point where I, as an individual, is at the helm of this community. Like I said, my predecessors dreamt of living this moment. They worked hard. They did everything. But they couldn't. But I am blessed that I led this wonderful delegation to see it. So the emotion and the tears we cried were tears of joy. And the tears that the beautiful people of Cologne are ready to end this long war and to bring back peace to our community by restoring to us what was taken from us wrongly. Thank you very much.
Ricardo? Then?
Thank you very much. It has been a great honor to listen to all of you. I just have one question. We've talked a lot about colonialism, and I come from Kenya, and in our case, they did not just take away all these things, they also took away this respect and this meaning that you have told us. There's so much of our history, like the things that I wear them, but I don't know the meaning. If my grandmother will talk about them, she will talk about them in a different meaning. And I just wonder, how is it for your people at home? Do they also await this artifact, this spiritual art? Do they know the meaning? Are they waiting for that meaning, or has that meaning gotten lost? And how is this re-education? How are you re-educating your people so that we as a younger generation can find back our meaning to these things that were taken from us? Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have different groups of younger generations. When I say younger, even of my generation. You have those who grew up within the kingdom and hear these stories every day. I spoke of moving from pain and mourning to myth, and today is becoming a reality with hope. This segment that calls it a myth, particularly those who did not grow up in the kingdom. Our young people who were born in the diaspora, when they come home, if their grandmother or great-grandmother or whatever relative tries to talk them about it, they say, grandma, those your stories again. That's why I say it become a myth. You've heard it so many times. Because some of them come, you go to the village, and they're telling you stories of the process of Fontem Njifua and what we suffered and this. And so the interest started waning. That's why I say it became a myth. And even when they tell you, you're no longer really living it. The firm still exists, but you're not living the power of the firm. Recently, with some of the uprisings in our country, it made our pain worse because we were mocked. Where are your powers? How can this happen in your land? And even some of our young people who grew up in the cities will say, but you people said, they then disassociate themselves. These are our great-grandchildren. And so we become, you people said you had powers. You people said Fontem Njifua resisted the Germans. How come these little boys are running rings around you? And these are all the consequences of taking away who we are. So you have those who grew up who still believe or live in hope, because they hear it every day from those who were there, the last of those who were there. Because when a great uncle can tell you what he saw, what he lived, if he's not lost his memory, you believe him. But when it's somebody who heard from somebody who heard from somebody, then it's just a story. And of course, it starts losing its meaning. Don't forget, our histories were oral. Unfortunately, we paid tribute to our palace historian. He would have been here with us, but he passed away without seeing this. We have students who've researched into our history. We have an Australian, Mr. Brian, who researched into our history. When the young people read some of those books, like you, they really don't understand what you're talking about. But of course, when you start writing an oral history, you might find two versions, because something gets lost in translation. And in real translation, because these elderly people are speaking in our native language and somebody is translating, and as it's being handed down, and don't forget, they speak a lot in proverbs, in riddles. And so we can't enumerate all the damage this has caused. So yes, we've lost a lot of our history, because we are also, other than being oral, we are also very visual. You're hearing, but you're not seeing. So when it goes back, then they can all say, so great-grandma was right. Mommy, can you tell us that great-grandma's story again? The interest will come back. The debates will begin. And then we'll be able to assemble all the debates and come back, because the interest will now come back. So we'll be able to retrace what we have lost, even in our history that has been diluted. Thank you.
So we have here and then there. Yes.
Just a quick addition to what Mafua was saying, and your question about the interest. I wasn't even sure that this was on YouTube live. I just checked my feeds a couple of minutes ago. My Twitter feed is going crazy. YouTube has been jammed by all the young Bangwa sons and daughters around the world who are trying to catch a glimpse of this magnificent occasion here today. So yes, the interest is there.
So she had a question, so here and then at the back.
Yeah, sorry, but just before them, it was here.
Oh, okay.
If it's okay, then we will do it like this, yes?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. If someone from the community wants to speak first, I also would give it, but if not, I raise my question. I also feel really honored to listen to you and to be allowed to talk. I also really appreciate that we have this occasion today or event and this new era, which was mentioned often. But also when representatives of the state of Cologne or also of the German state talk about colonialism, or that they are really aware about the colonial crimes and past, I always feel really ashamed and disappointed, because it's not true. They are not aware. This is what we are feeling and experiencing really often. And yes, considering this, I think it's really important to consider that Germany is still a neo-colonial state when it comes to exploitation and deportations and the benefit from the colonial past and colonial present. And yes, considering this, my question is, because if they would be aware about the past and what happened and the consequences, they would immediately give back what is not belonging to Germany. So my question is, what kind of excuses were given to you that you cannot immediately take what is belonging to you, all your artifacts, everything what is spiritual connected to you? Because we all know the time for excuses is over. Thank you very much.
one of the things I want to make very clear, well, we did not come here to hold the museum and the authorities of Cologne responsible for the crimes that we endured. No, far from it. They played instead a very positive role. And I also praise their researchers and also the researchers of the museum in Brunswick. I think I pronounced it well, because they're able to challenge the narrative that glorified colonialism and its crimes. And that's why I said it is perceived as being revolutionary. I work in international court and tribunals dealing with crimes against humanity, war crimes, and genocide, and other inhumane acts. And many of the crimes, especially those committed in Africa and elsewhere, are linked to colonialism. The supporting material, you go to all the courts, they go look back at colonialism. And this is the first group of people, the Museum Cologne and those in Brunswick, with their researchers have come up with proper research, dispassionate research, which is okay. And I think with them, we perceive a new generation of Germans and German citizens whose world perception is different from the era 120 years ago of Strumpel and other people who glorified colonialism. So we want to make this very, very clear. On the contrary, even before we came here, and apparently from their species, they have been very forcefully against colonialism and the crimes of colonialism, looting. And it is a matter of extreme importance that we have a museum, one of the most important museums probably in the world like this. Or you have at the head of the museum a director and workers, and also have a municipality that's conducting research into every piece to know its provenance and to find out exactly the true history. Is very, very difficult, but they've done it, and we're thanking them for that. Our emotions happen on their watch. Our frustrations happen on their watch, because at that time, they are the ones who have the key. There's one who have listened to us. Others have stonewalled. Others have done everything to frustrate. On occasion, either in the courtrooms, in international tribunals, and conferences, we found many who have actually glorified colonialism and tried to justify it. But one thing is very obvious, like you said, and we say, they share our pain, they share our collective shame and humiliations. We sit side by side with them in conferences, in courtrooms, and everywhere, and they listen to these very stories, and many of them hold us over time and say, I'm very sorry, whereas they were not the ones who committed the crimes. You had the deputy mayor, you had the director denouncing colonialism in the most forceful terms. We must not paint everybody with the same brush. We see this in new generation of Germans through our own case, that Africa and other oppressed people in the world can have hope. Even though we are sitting here, but we think what we see here and what we're taking home is a measure of hope to them. And I totally endorse what my father, the king, has said, and what my brother, His Royal Highness, my elder sister, Her Royal Highness, and our notables, all what they've all said, that we are extremely happy, and we thank you on behalf of Bangwa, on behalf of Africa, and other oppressed people who are undergoing the same pain.
Yes, here and then there at the back. Mhm.
Well, good afternoon, all. My name is Antonia Taku. I'm the wife of Chief Taku. I'm here today. I don't have a question, but a comment. I'm very honored to be here with my two daughters, Gwing Taku and Atabong Taku. She's actually, Atabong is actually named after my mother-in-law, who was a princess. I'll let my husband introduce her. So we were planning a vacation somewhere else this summer. But when he told us about this event, we had to cancel that other vacation plan to be here today. So it is an honor for us to be here as a family to witness this, what our great-grandfather, who we never met, but we've heard a lot about him through my husband, whose mother was the granddaughter of the Font. So it is an honor to have them here today to see what their grandparent had. We've actually been to Fontem, and he has shown us the exact location where that was in the palace. So it is an honor to be part of this occasion and to have them present to see tradition and to be part of this history. You guys can sit down. But I have always wondered, I'm from a different part of Cameroon, not from the Fontem village, but as you all are aware, there's, what do you call it, tribal war going on in Cameroon. And the Fontem area is the most heat area where the fight is intense in Cameroon. And I've always asked my husband, what is it about Fontem that these people are there? But Mafua, Diane answered that question. Like she asked, why do you guys want the artifact back? And I now understand why. The protection for that village is no longer there. So bringing it back home maybe will end the war that is going on there. I was telling some of them yesterday, there's a song that was produced by Bob Marley. It's about Afuakom. It's one of the artifacts that was also stolen from one of the tribes in Northwest called Afuakom, yes. And the song goes by, you must know your history. I think for you probably know the name of the song. You can Google it. Huh? Buffalo Soldier, yes. And it's one of the artifacts that was also stolen from this village in Northwest called the Bansor people. And he said when Afuakom was stolen by the white people, it was fighting on arrival, fighting for survival. That means he didn't want to come here. He didn't want to come to Europe. He wanted to go back to Africa. And the song says, you must know your history, where these things are coming from and why, you know. So I grew up in a family where tradition is big. My father was from the palace also, and I value tradition. So I was telling Ricardo yesterday, I said, oh, maybe I can come here and start searching for my own, my ancestors' artifacts. Maybe there are some of them here so I can bring them back home. So I am really honored to be here with my kids to watch what is happening here. And for your question, I live with, my mother lived with me, and she instilled a lot of tradition in my kids. So they are very interested in what is going on here. So it is a pleasure to be part of this history. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just wanted to say, as long as I'm here in the museum, you're always welcome. Here, yes? This, yeah, please.
First of all, thank you for being here with us. And just wanted to comment also on what you just said about the Lefen being like the like a protection. I see it more like an identity. You know, it's like a unifying. It could act as a unifying force, let's say, of between the conflict that is going on right now in Cameroon between the Francophones and the Anglophones, right? I could see that this could probably bring that unity that is probably, because we are somehow, it's that representative. Lefen is like the representative of the identity of the Bangwa people, right? And so I was just wanted to comment on that. But my question was actually, I'm a member of the Focolare movement, and so that means actually there's this deep and long-standing kinship with your people. So that I just wanted to know, in that history of kinship between the Focolare movement and the Bangwa people, what is that? What does that mean in the grand scheme of things of this, you know, that 120 years war that you felt was a war? I just wanted to know, yeah, did that have any influence at all in this strive to gain that true liberty, the true, liberty of people, of your people? And then the second question is directed more towards the museum director here. Is this one, would you have other actions and different activities that would be conducive to returning to the rightful owners such objects as Lefen? So.
Chief Charsak with the micro, please.
Hello. Yeah, yeah. As you heard, and thank you, Antonia. You heard from my wife, and you heard before from the Royal Highnesses here before. What you call the war today is part of the disruptions from 120 years to date. The society has been in disarray, have been different forms of disconnections, and that's why we thank the Focolare movement that their involvement in our community helped to caution some of the effects when they came in. When you came in, we had sleeping sickness that blighted nearly a whole generation. And I'm one of the beneficiaries because you build a hospital and thereafter build a college, which I attended. And you worked with us. You tried you did that. And that's why His Majesty said that you have accompanied us through challenges over generations. And that has helped trying to caution the effect. But what is happening today, and you heard my wife say it, you heard my elder sister Royal Highness said it before, and His Royal Highness Fabella, is if these, all of them had returned and the spirit of Fontem Njifua, our ancestors, the society will never, ever have fallen into this level of complete disarray, dysfunction. I can assure you, it will never have. And the day that is coming back, all the people of the kingdom will be as one as they were supposed to be. I can tell you from here that the mere, even hearing that we were here, and His Majesty touched it 3 times, and we came and we had this reception, I can tell you everybody will pay attention. The Nkamfozong just already told you that these young people in social media, in YouTube, who are the people fighting the young people? They are their generation. And of course, because of the cooperation that we are having today, that international element that Fontem Njifua brings and the firm today, they bring to us, even the government and others will pay attention. Because what we have today is higher, is one of the highest attributes of the African personality. What happened in Benin, the Oba of Benin, we paid attention because I was involved. The prince, handed by Ngolefe and others, were fighting. I was by them, just that I could not come forward. And they are involved in what is happening here. And I just told a number of people how in Niger Republic, we have Isabella here from the Rautenstrauch-Museum who participated in the Conference of African Bar Association where we talk about the issue with some other people. So it is an issue that every other dissolution will wait. When Fontem Njifua comes, and if some other come, every other person pays attention. In every community that happens. There are community people in Germany, if people were in a state of war, and those people come up, everybody pays attention. And I can tell you that that authority for us to say, stop, it was received. Some obeyed. But as Her Royal Highness has said, some said this is a myth. That dysfunction, this is going to eliminate that myth, and the reality will come. Fontem has only held the community together. This, the firm holds the community together, as His Royal Highness said. So do not be worried about what is happening. If you came here at this point in time, because we are also sure, and we assure you, that the restitution is going to resolve this problem. Now, the director was asked a question, and I think the director can answer.
Yes. I would say for us, dealing with restitution, dealing with colonial history, has become a daily task, and it will also become our future. And not only at the Rautenstrauch-Joest-Museum, but in every museum, in every German museum, and also outside Germany. And so I also would like to, as a Dutch director working here in Germany, I would like to say we do not speak about German colonialism. Colonialism is a European history. I think it's very important to say that. So the Rautenstrauch-Joest-Museum has already a long history dealing with restitution and also proactive. In 2018, the Rautenstrauch-Joest-Museum restituted a toy moko to New Zealand. After a long provenance research, contacted New Zealand and sent it back. We are also very much involved in the negotiation about the return of the Benin bronzes. Last week, Friday, 1st of July 2022, I was in Berlin with some members of my team, and we were there during the signature of the agreement between Germany and Nigeria. Rautenstrauch-Joest-Museum has the 4th largest collection of 96 royal artworks from Benin City, and so we here are very active. And here in this room I have my friend and professor, Dr. Peju Laiwola. She is from Benin City, and she is over there, and she is actually the patron of this Benin collection, and she joins us, she has joined us in this negotiation. The end of the month of April, we opened our a new exhibition space, and the title is I Miss You, about missing, giving back and remembering. And this is a place, a kind of mourning place, and also how to come into, how to deal with this common history and what will be our future. And in this space, I Miss You, we show the collection of 96 royal artworks from Benin City, and this is really a space which we will also use for future restitution requests. So it is a daily work, and I think that is our mission, to open our doors for those communities, and yes, and to repair the colonial wound. That is, I see that as my mission, and this is the mission of our Rautenstrauch-Joest-Museum. So a long history, and there will be future restitution requests, but I think this agreement, this incredible agreement which took place last week, and Germany is here the very first country in Europe to organize this agreement. And here we speak about the transfer of ownership of more than 1,130 royal artworks, which are in German collection. So here Germany plays a really important role, and this is very, very symbolic. This is a huge symbol for the future of our museums. And so, yes, so we enter a new era, and we will open the doors more and more, not only for communities as here, for this fantastic royal delegation from Fontem, but also, and even really, this is for us really important, open the doors to the African diaspora living in North Rhine-Westphalia. Thank you very much.
So, Njeri, sorry, I have already 4 questions. I have promised 4 people, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, we take the 4 and then we conclude.
So I would
keep your questions short so that we can get all 4 people to ask their questions. Thank you.
And also because outside there is something very special waiting for you.
Okay, I try to keep it short. My name is Axel Hill. I'm from the Cologne newspaper Kölnische Rundschau. Thank you, Your Royal Majesty, and all of you for sharing your emotions, because that is so much more than just reading a letter. We want this restituted. So that was very, very heartbreaking. Okay, so now my very profane question is, when it returns to Cameroon, and I hope that will be very soon, where will it find a new home? And how will it find a place in your daily life? Because I have a feeling that on a spiritual level, you need that. So how will it be on a practical level, if you excuse that question?
And sorry, if possible, short answer. Sorry for this important question.
It is returning home. We are taking it back home. It's not finding a new home. I hope that answers your question.
So, is it on? Okay. I'm very, very overwhelmed to be present here today, especially in front of His Royal Majesty, the Fount of Fontem. I want to greet all the notables present. And you people have talked a lot about emotions. We've seen the emotions. You've talked about damages. I have some few questions, and one of them will go to the director. Is this, I don't know, what is the emotions of the Germans or of this, of the authorities losing or giving back this precious artifact of us? And is this a platform where future discussions are going to come up, how you're going to make amends for this, or is this just like we're giving back what we took from you, or is there going to be something that's going to come afterwards? And I would equally like to ask my elders, who most of them are on the legal bench, if during all your struggles, all this fight you've been fighting to get back Le Femme, if you envisaged any program or any plan for getting back reparations whatsoever for keeping the femme for over 100 years out of home? Thank you.
There were different questions. One was directed to our director.
Well, as the Dutch director of a German institution, and I represent here a German institution, I think it is difficult to speak for a whole Germany or for Europe, but I can just tell there are mixed feelings, and a lot of mixed feelings in Germany and Europe. There are a lot of voices against the return or restitution, or against the way how we see and read and understand history, because it is not only about restitution of materiality, of material artifacts, it is restitution of a unheard narrative. So as Europeans, and I prefer really to speak as European because I'm deeply, deeply European, and I even could not speak for the Dutch. So I speak as a European. I think it's a very, very mixed feeling, and we are in a moment where we rediscover a part of a history we didn't know. And so it's mixed, and there is a lot of emotions. There are emotions, negative emotions, there is anger, there is also a lot of aggressivity, I must admit also. So it's mixed, and I really hope that we do not see this kind of debates as a debate about guilt. A lot, particularly perhaps in Germany, this debate is filled with guilt, and when you look to France or to the Netherlands or to Belgium, this idea of guilt is not so important, and guilt is not very productive. And I think we have to look at the future and to see this debate as a very, very positive debate, which gives us a lot of hope for a better future. I don't want to be pathetic, but actually it is what we are doing here, or what we are trying to do, is to make a better future, but together and not alone. Thank you.
Okay. You raised a question that delves into the domain of international law. We made a conscious decision to ask for restitution, because restitution is possible with regard to the museums and the municipality. They can do the restitution, and perhaps they very cautiously and wisely also write in their request about cooperation. They talk about restitution and cooperation. They are not using the word reparations, because the word reparation has profound legal consequences. The laws and the conventions we were applying, if you look at, including the United Nations and the international human rights regime that occurred after 1945 or even before, it did not have African and Africans as the focus of those international human rights instruments. Take note, because Africa at the time was not subject of international law. Colonialism still occurred, even to countries of the free world that fought the Second World War against Germany and others. Colonial rule was still in force, brutal wars for independence, and they wrote the laws and the conventions. It is with independence that Africa became subject to international law, and they made sure that the international treaty regime we're having now, that the International Criminal Court and others, and many other laws in the continent, The first time you find Africa negotiating as equals in negotiating these treaties. Nevertheless, the United Nations has passed certain resolutions on the question of colonialism. For example, the United Nations made colonialism a crime against humanity. And two, the United Nations resolution asking for former colonial powers to negotiate in good faith with colonized people and see as much as possible as they can compensate or do some reparations. But it is just at that level. I do not know, when it comes to justifying, going to the court of law, it's another area that is developing. But take note, Snoep, the colonial officer who came to our land and committed these crimes, was an agent of the German government. He was not an agent of the municipality of Brunswick, for whom we are trying to ask for restitution, nor that of Cologne or any of the municipalities, even though these municipalities kept them. And that's why you find that the mayors of the municipality and others are writing to say we did not know the criminal origin of these acts when they came to us. And that's why it took researchers, very good researchers, to challenge that narrative of saying that Fontem really fully handed over the things to him, or to say Conrad bought the things, or he was a trader, whereas there's evidence that he was an agent of the German government. One restitution first, we will look at the question of international treaties and United Nations resolutions, which Germany is fulfilling in many respects. They fulfill already with regard to Namibia, to show that the German government is also willing now at this point in time to look at the cases probably on a case-by-case basis, especially when crimes were committed. They will look at that. But for now, and for this purpose, our focus is that the municipalities, we have not seen, and from the letter of invitation and their own research, they say they did not know. It is their researchers now that have been able to bring up the evidence of criminality, which they have admitted, and that is the reason why they are even venturing to discuss with the different municipalities that, look, it is not part of our values, legal values, to keep things that were looted on the blood of human beings, because the blood of these innocent people may follow our own generation. I think that is the problem that we have now. But surely, we are international lawyers. We know exactly the complexity of this. We'll be fighting about it in other circumstances. And I think we're very conscious that the way our case is framed, our request is framed, now with the museums, is the most appropriate way by which we may succeed.
Last two questions, which I already have promised before, then we will have to end. Please, short question, short answer. Because food is waiting for us, drinks are waiting for us, and very, very special dances.
So, good afternoon. My name is Fred Eric H.R.M, and I'm from the French part of Cameroon. And my best friend, when I came to Germany with the scholarship to study here, was Michael Tano from the Mook village. And I used to help him as he went back home and have helped to build the welcome wall of his village, as well as collecting money to build a radio station, a rural radio station in his village. I'm also, I have the chance to become a grand notable from 13 small villages from Cameroon. I'm representing them here in Germany. As member of the diaspora, I just have one question to you and one question to Frau Director. What should we do, or what could you recommend us from the diaspora to do when it comes to promoting culture, to promoting peace, and to promoting vivre ensemble together? Thank you so much.
The question was directed to the director.
Well, actually, it was not a plan that, that I had to speak, but it is an important question. And I think that's why I said in the beginning, this museum, we see it as a platform also for the diaspora. And you can feel here in this room, it is not enough a platform for the diaspora. And I think this will be our main task, to open the doors and take the hands of the diaspora, but also that they feel welcome. And that was not every time the case, as you know. So I think, for example, we could give the example of the current I Miss You exhibition, where we show those 96 royal artworks. It is, when we opened this exhibition at the end of April, there was a large part of this room was filled with people from the Edo diaspora, from Benin City, because there is a large community from the Edo state here in North Rhine-Westphalia. And this is wonderful. And they felt really proud of this collection, also hoping, of course, the transfer of ownership and the restitution, but they felt empowered because it's a room filled with history, their history. So here in this I Miss You project, members of the Edo community gave their own guiding tours in the exhibition, take their friends with them. We also have here small groups with kids from the African diaspora, where we speak about the history of the Benin Kingdom. And myself as director, I've noticed how the children, how they were empowered and so incredibly proud about what was there, and to have the feeling to be taken seriously, because we take it really seriously. It is always this kind of tokenism, museums. We take one member of the community and then we are diverse. I don't see it. I think it's a long way we have to do. But I think it is very important that this house will be also for the kids of the African diaspora, and that they can tell their own history, their own story. And so it is really a place where we have to try to tell the history, the story anew. And I think here we can empower, and here we have an important task as museum in Cologne. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your Royal Majesty, it's such a wonderful thing listening to all of you and all the royals in the house. The story of Fontem is the story of the expropriation of artifacts from all over Africa. So I come from Benin City, and it was very similar to your own ancestor. Oba Rahab that was exiled, that died in exile in Calabar, is also my ancestor. So when we talk about looted artifacts and the pain that you expressed today, I can actually relate to that. I remember when I touched the Benin work for the first time, I had a wave of emotions. And that also inspired the poem that I wrote. So my prayer, I don't have any question for you. My prayer is that your reign will be beautiful. This is a very good sign. And that by the time this sacred artifact returns to your community, not to your government, that there will be great celebration on the land. There will be great celebration in the land. And that all of us will be there to witness the kind of history that we witnessed in Benin City when His Royal Majesty Oba Ewa II received 2 very important sacred objects from the UK. He took them back to where the works were taken from, and the entire crowd went with him to the sacred groves, including young people in Benin City. So that's my prayer, that you will celebrate, and we'll all be there to celebrate with you. Thank you very much.
What? Sorry. Oh, I forgot I have the micro on. But there was one young boy who wanted to ask something. There he is. This is our future, so the future gets to ask the last question.
Yeah, hello, my name is Acha-Morfaw, and I wanted to ask, how are you going to get back the other artifacts that are not in Germany, and what is going to happen with the German children like me that live in Germany?
Would you like to answer? You can answer, Professor. Give the professor the mic.
Yeah, it would have been, are you hearing me? It would not have been good if one of these diaspora grandchildren comes here and go without saying anything. So thank you for your question. Not that the time has changed. The world is one. People are working for a united world. What you have been hearing of globalization, mondialization, means that every human being today, if he's of today, is a citizen of the world. Therefore, you can be born in Germany, you can be born in Africa, in Cameroon, in Tanzania, in Kenya. Just what you have to know, it would have not told you yet, is that you are a citizen of the world. You can go back to any place and stay as your house. Nobody can consider you a stranger, okay? We want new citizens who are Germans. You are from Fontem, are you from Cameroon? Where are you from? Yes, yes. You are a Bangwa and you are a German. That is a great thing today. And only you can be this. We cannot be that, okay? So you bring back this, you're being German and being Bangwa for a united world. So we thank you for the contribution that you are going to give, okay?
Just approach it. Yeah.
I think when His Majesty, His Royal Majesty spoke, and when His Highness Chief Taku spoke, he mentioned that the letter spoke of restitution and cooperation. I think in the aspect of cooperation, we are just opening negotiations. But the aspect of cooperation is where you'll probably benefit. Because when it goes back, somebody asks what language you speak and all of that, it will bring you now back home to visit it. If it's here, you see it in a museum. You hear stories. But when you'll be coming back to visit it in Cameroon, you will see it in another light, in its rightful place. So, when your father is bringing you to your roots in Bele, you will visit Ngolefe and all the other Bangwa Americans, Bangwa French, Bangwa British, all your generation. When you come home for various ceremonies, for holidays, you'll be able to visit it in its rightful place. And not just the Cameroonian diaspora, the young Germans, particularly those who saw this or their parents saw this here and told them about it, they'll be able to come to Cameroon and see that history and see where it is. I believe that's what the museum meant in his letter when he was talking of cooperation. These are things we're going to discuss in the course of the negotiations. We are not taking it away from you. We are taking you to go and visit it in its rightful place, in all its glory. You'll enjoy it more.
There's one point which His Royal Highness brought up yesterday. We realized that this historical narrative has gone around for too long and brainwashed everyone, including our own children. That's part of the damage when our children go to school and they're talking about their own art, their own lefem, and they label them in derogatory terms on language which is not inconsistent with what they really. We hope and we'll fight for that after, that in our own land there should be institutions where they could actually teach them the appropriate history, where the research, the new research that's coming on can be brought there, where they can review the curriculum of schools and put in the curriculum issues that concern the humanity of them. One of the things that we ask about the question of technological advancement in Africa and the creative ingenuity we was interrupted is simply the fact that these were taken away, as she said. If the creative ingenuity that produced dresses like these continued, were not interrupted, and the people who made them probably killed in the collective punishment, they will pass them down to the different generation, and the creative African technology and development will have been different. But when this comes back, we'll make sure that we have institutions and the curriculum, and we'll make sure that not all our children have seen many young Germans. He is here, he has a school, and he knows many young Germans come, and some have come right to Akino, that they heard about this, only to say that no, those artifacts were cut away in Germany, they're not here. They want to see the natural environment. And I think our own contribution to civilization, that's why I call this the conscience of African civilization. And that's why, of course, my distinguished elder sister, Her Royal Highness, in very forceful terms, said that part of our humanity is gone. We need to start rebuilding. We need to regain it in order to be considered as such. So you see a whole system of learning, of knowledge that was going out, and the sheer level of brainwashing of the literature. There's something in law that we call fair labeling. If you do not give the appropriate label to a solution, you cannot solve it. But when you give the wrong label to it, you get the wrong solution. That's why His Majesty and the Royal Highnesses here will give the appropriate label, and the director and the representative mayor, they said looting. What if they adopted the language of Stompo and said, Fontem Njifua, we fully gave him this? Which is too humiliating even. It goes beyond denying, committing a crime and denying. But it was good research. And this research came from where? From the Germans, from the researchers in the museum in Germany. And there are very few. I've dictated only about 2 or 3 for all these years in Germany. I've not seen any other in any other place. Maybe there are others. As we are looking for more in France, in Holland, and Germany, that we'll have a list now. Maybe I may find researchers there, but I didn't see them before. I met 2 researchers, one in Brunswick and one here, and probably there may be others out there. Thanks.
Just the last intervention. The 120 years sounds a long time, but I'm lucky to have just 1 generation. When Fontem Njifua was taken out of Leban, my father was a young man. My father. And so when he came back, my father was present. And my father retired in 1955 before I was born. I mean, these are the dates. He died in 1951. So the stories, I got it from somebody who lived it. I have an uncle, Padik, who is now on his bed. He has cancer, the legs have been cut off, but he's still up here, very correct. Who saw Fontem Njifua when he was taken away? That's the last of our uncles. And when he came back, when Fontem Njifua died, I was a mass server. The successor to Antonia, I was a mass server in the college. In 1982, I was in Fontem, in the college. So this story, I have lived it. And Fontem Njifua came and died. When Fontem Njifua was taken over, I was there. And when Fontem Njifua died, and His Majesty was there, we were the people. So it is sounding very long, but I'm lucky that I missed only one generation. My father was part of this deal, and he told all the stories. And so when I got there, I was crying. I said, so this, what I was hearing, like Mafua said, they said, stop, those are stories again. Those stories have become a reality. And my son is outside here. That he will say, my father, you see, this is a continuation. That falls for the new German generation, the young generation. And that those who come to Cameroon for Social Friday, I'll take them to Fontem and they'll visit it. Thank you.
Thank you. A short.
I just want to pay some tribute. Mm-hmm. In our kingdom, the women have played a very important role. And I want to pay first tribute to Mafua, Fontem Njifua elder sister. When he was taken into exile, even before then, but I'll just go to this part. She was one who fought violently for her brother to be returned and who secured her throne to make sure when he came back, he sat on her throne. Her stories are very long, but this is one of the great women of our kingdom. I also want to pay tribute before her to Onyiasong, who is one of those pillars of our dynasty. She said they will introduce her mother-in-law, my aunt, Princess Oatabong. She was another great woman who stood by her brothers. Without these women, we might not even be here today. So I thought I could not come and sit here and go without paying tribute to these great women of our kingdom, of our history. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Thank you to the audience. Thank you also for this wonderful conversation and this wonderful dialogue that we have just had here. Please allow me to just conclude with a few words that I think are just important. For me, I think as a person who, is here in the city of Cologne, I really do understand, the decolonizing of the museum, as one of the audience asked, as an effort to confront the colonial ideas and practices present in ethnographic museums up until this day. I would like to invite you, all those working in this museum, to become part of the intervention and the broader conversation about the role of justice within this museum. We must decolonize this museum, even when it makes some people uncomfortable. Decolonizing should not be a word that we use as a vogue word, because it requires us to do the hard work, to imagine or re-imagine better museums. And yes, this is work, it is painful, but it can be done. We must decolonize the museum from the standpoint of history, from the standpoint of culture, and from the standpoint of its publics. We often hear museums referring to themselves as neutral spaces. But then how can they be neutral when they are also spaces where knowledge is produced and consumed, where colonial legacies and practices are kept alive, reproduced, and histories omitted? Words like white privilege and oppression are hard ones for us to think about in terms of museum practice. Individuals may be good people working for good of the society, but they work within systems that they have inherited, but have not necessarily dismantled and disowned. It is in these systems that communicate messages of exclusions to people who have been objects of various forms of oppression over the centuries. And by now, most of us have already known, and we have also heard about this story, that, most of this work was not acquired without violence. Addressing these controversies within our own museums can help museums use their platform to highlight injustices in power structures rather than simply using them for their own advantage. So European museums will have to be prepared for many more like today, coming from other mother African countries and also places who will demand the return of their property. What the rightful owners do with their property is their decision, and this must not delay restitution. Restitution demands that we look at our own museums and the structures within it from a critical point of view. This work is a process, a hard process that will require the work of not only the people working within the museums, but also from the communities outside the museum. Because we can no longer be silenced. We must tell our stories in our own truth, in our own voices, and in our own words. We must rewrite our histories to include our voices. So yes, restitution matters. Sacred Bangwa sculpture matter. Benin bronze matter. Our narrative matters. So I thank you all for taking your time to be here. And thank you also to our honorable guest for visiting our city. Thank you also for re-educating us about, this sculpture. And now I would like to hand over to Ricardo, who is going to finish up for 1 minute, and then we can all go eat, drink, and dance.
I don't want to repeat what has already been said. Just want to thank you again for being here, and I invite you to join us at the foyer of the museum. There will be drinks, there will be music, and there will be very, very important traditional dances. And 1 second, please, everyone, please stand up, and the delegation is going to leave the room first.
Did he switch it off? Oh yeah, he switched it off.